Hi guys, it's the Forgetful Scholar. Let's chat about books. 2 books this week. So we have The Most Adorable Uncle and Ghost Wedding, ? Okay, so the first book is going to be Julia Quinn, called Splendid. Now I haven't read a Julia Quinn before. I know, Bridgerton. I know. So this was I believe, yeah. So this was a 3-star, and it's FM historical. And it follows American heiress Emma and British Duke Alex. So, and this is the debut novel, according to the letter in the front. Yeah. I mean, it's a really good debut novel. Like, I'll give it that. I felt the pacing was kind of off in some points, and I'll get into that a little bit more. I enjoyed myself. You know, I liked Emma a lot. You know, she's stubborn to the point of, like, you know, what's that saying? Cut off your nose to spite your face. Me too. I totally understood her completely. I was like, yeah, me too. I do stupid shit too like that. Like, I'm so stubborn, I'll do stuff to spite myself. To make a point. Yep. Me too. I'm working on it. It's not going well, but me too. I liked her cousins. I liked their relationship with her family. My favorite character in this whole book was the Uncle Henry, and he was only in like 3 scenes. It is called Splendid, and I counted 5 times in the book the word splendid was used, including the very last word in the whole book. Like, if you could see? Look at that. Look at that. Lisa Kleypas could never. Anyway, so anyway, FM historical romance. I enjoyed myself. I did. I want to check out more of her books. Am I going to read the Bridgerton series? No. And this is, at least not yet. And this is one of those moments I spite myself. You know what I mean? I'm being stubborn and I'm just hurting myself, but here we go. I wanted to read the Bridgerton series and the show came out. I didn't watch the show because I wanted to read the books first, but my mom, hey mom, she watched it and she loved it. And that's awesome because, you know, hey, that's great. You know what I mean? But she would tell me about each episode in detail every time. And then every week she would do a recap and then tell me what. So I'm kind of sick of Bridgerton without reading or watching it. To the point where every time I see a Bridgerton novel, I roll my eyes and huff and put it back on the shelf. So yeah, I'm sick of it without even watching it or read it. I mean, I'm sure eventually I'll stop being a stubborn ass and I'll read it and I'm sure I'll enjoy it and I'll be like, why didn't I read this sooner? Because I'm a stubborn ass. Like Emma. Emma's a stubborn ass too. I liked her a lot. It talks about how it was, you know, how it was so rough being a woman back then, even if she was a woman of high means and things like that, because she couldn't run her dad's business, which really bummed her out because that's all she wanted to do. I was kind of upset that during the book she kind of gave up on that, and I'm like, I get it, it's unrealistic if you were able to take over your father's business, but also, this is a romance novel? Like, this is a novel? It's all made up? Like, you could have, you know what I mean? I'm gonna explain why I like the uncle so much, and then we'll move on to the actual plot of the book. Okay, so the uncle's only in it like 3 scenes, and he was so funny to me. So, the first scene, Emma and her best friend slash cousin, Belle, who I really liked, were getting ready for a ball. And they were wearing a more risque bodice cut. Not anything like too like scandalous, just, you know, something her more conservative aunt was like, oh no you won't. And then like her, Bella and the aunt are like arguing over it, and Bella's like, this is the current fashion, it's nothing indecent, and the aunt is like, yes it is, wait till your father sees. And this is kind of the first time we see him or have like a scene with him, and I expected like the typical like young lady do what I say kind of a thing. Like, I expected her to like, oh my jaw hurts, excuse me, I expected her to kind of get yelled at or like guilted something, you know. First thing he does, he walks up the stairs, he looks at his daughter, he's like, good God, you're naked, like, exclaims. And Bella's like, fine, I'll go change. And then she leaves to go change, and when she's gone, Uncle Henry turns to his wife and is like, well, that was easy. And then he goes down the stairs. I was like, that, sir, was hilarious. And then during the really far too long middle of the book, they're at a garden party in the country, because of course, why not? You know, of course. And they're at the dinner table, and Emma kicks Alex, you know, not to say anything, not to say something, and then Belle kicks her brother Ned not to say anything, and then you hear the aunt exclaim, Henry! And he looks over, and then it pans over to them, and apparently, like, Henry kicked her under the table, and he looks at her, and he's like, frankly, my dear, I felt left out. You know? And then, towards the end of the book, you know, Alex and Emma come in. Alex says he's compromised her on purpose to the uncle, so that she has to marry him, because, again, Emma's super stubborn. And like, that's when we see Uncle Henry, like, with his temper. And the moment all the kids are away, he immediately comes out, he turns to his wife, and he's like, so what do you think? And I love that he, like, included her in the process. Like, what do you think? You know, what should we do? And then he goes in the study and, like, starts drinking whiskey with Alex. Like, he was my favorite character of the book, you know? And I'm happy he wasn't in more scenes. I think it was the perfect amount of scenes, added the perfect amount of, like, levity to certain situations, and it was nice. And it kind of showcased that, like, sure, Alex, the main character, is kind of a typical romance guy, but that this author's capable of writing really interesting and kind of different characters. So I really liked Uncle Henry, and my dog always does those noises. Okay, I really liked Emma. I really liked her family. So Emma is a rich American. She comes to England to be introduced to the town with her best friend and cousin. Belle, happenstance happens, and she's on the street in a maid's outfit getting eggs when she sees a young boy almost trampled. She saves him, knocks her head. And I will say, for, like, the description for slamming her head against the street, they're really cavalier about her health. But also, I'm like, okay, it's like 1800s, so yeah, they don't know how dangerous concussions are. And then I'm like, no, they know how dangerous hitting your head is. Not necessarily what a concussion is, but how dangerous hitting the head is. So I was really kind of confused by that. I was like, okay, all right, you know what? Doesn't matter. Let's keep going. And the boy was Alex's nephew, and I really liked his sister too. She was a breath of fresh air, very kind of different character, like rambles a lot and kind of like a little high strung, but she had this like endearing qualities to her that I really liked her. So, you know, they think she's a maid, and the sister's like, please take my emerald earrings. Are they mistreating you? I'll hire you. You know, and Emma's just trying to get away. She doesn't want the emerald earrings. She's just trying to get away. Alex is like insta-love and / lust. He just lust, because he's the typical, I found him boring, but I'm going to get to that later. So there's identity hijinks going on. There was 2 third act conflicts, which I thought was weird. Like, the pacing's really off in this. And again, first novel, so I'm giving it like, okay, first novel, you know, working out their style, things like that. Okay, all right. But there were 2 third act conflicts, which I enjoyed both of them. You know what I mean? And I wished one of the first third act conflict came like 50 pages sooner, because there was, like I said, the pacing was off, so the middle of it was really boring. So there was a lot I liked about this. Now, Alex, he was a typical, like, brooding, serious duke, and people only after my money. Okay, whatever. You're a duke in England and you're wealthy. Like, you're not an impoverished member of the peer either. Like, and you're gorgeous and you have a good family. Shut the hell up. You know what I mean? It was a little... See, his whole thing was that he felt women were only after his money and status. And I'm like, okay, but there wasn't like a traumatic singular moment for me to justify some of his reactions later on, especially one time when he called her, after he realizes he loves her, he calls her a greedy bitch or something like that, and has her running away in tears. Now, I understand there has to be conflict and, you know, misunderstanding, stuff like that. But also there has to be a point where the guy makes up for it enough for you to be like, okay, he made up for it. It's all good. Or there has to be, for me, a justifiable trauma for that, for him, his reaction to be like that. And for me, there wasn't a justified trauma. Like, I think I would have understand his, like, I knew you were greedy, but even though, like, he knows she's a wealthy heiress, so, like she probably has more money than he does, you know what I mean? So it was a little weird, and that conflict resolved, like, the next page, so I was kind of bummed about that. But see, like, for me, if, like, maybe, you know, he was courting someone when he was younger, and he really loved her, and then he turned a corner and he found her having an affair and maybe making fun of him, like, oh, I'm only with him because of his title and money, you know, stuff like that. So, like, heartbroken, and then I could kind of understand why the trauma's there. Or, like, his mother was great, but, like, what if his mother wasn't great, or maybe his father wasn't great and they were just, like, title hunting? So it was an unhappy marriage and he grew up around that, you know, then I could understand how quickly he assumes Emma is a gold digger, even though Emma has more money than he does. You know what I mean? And he knows that. So I did think some of his reactions, there wasn't enough trauma or happenstance to make that believable to me, you know, or to make it understandable to me, the reader, you know what I mean? Like, the pacing was off, and I really wanted the identity hijinks to be longer, you know? And I read this because the back of the book, there was no, like, ooh, criminal mystery. I was expecting a sweet historical romance, no big complications with, like, identity mischiefness going on, you know what I mean? Which is what I got. That's why I like it. I'm gonna try out her other books. I'm excited. Not the Bridgerton. Anyway, the identity mischief gets solved, like, in chapter 2, and I was like, dang, I think that could have been a really fun thing to last a little longer. And then we get, like, 150 pages of them in the country getting to know each other, and I thought it was cute for the first 75 pages of that, and then I was bored as fuck. And I was like, okay, you could just taken out 50 pages of this nonsense, because it's not interesting. Cool, they have things in common. That's great. That's fantastic. But then, like, it stretched out the things in common that it took 150 pages to write. And I was like, ugh. And then by the point where I was like, oh man, this sucks, I'm bored, a surprise caper happens. I was like, ooh, this is so much fun. The Woodside caper happens. I'm in it. She's in disguise, lock picking. There's a huge distraction over here, you know. Oh my gosh, you can't fight till last minute. I had fun with that, you know. I had a lot of fun with that. And then there was another conflict later on after they get married where things started to slow down again. I was like, okay, is this like sort of wrapping it up? No, all of a sudden her cousin Belle is kidnapped. And I was like, oh, I'm in it. Let's go. Oh my gosh, this is so exciting. So I think if they took 50 pages out of the middle and just moved everything up, I think this book would have flowed a lot better. But I feel like all I'm doing is complaining. I actually really did enjoy this book. Sure, I was bored some places, but I did enjoy it. Like, I did. I feel like I have to justify it, but I did. I promise. I swear. The second book is the Ghost Wedding. So, Ghost Ship, a Port Chatham Mystery Book 2 by p.j.alderman. So there is the house she got, the little ghosties up there. Oh, the doggy Malachi on the boat. For this one, I love the house in the cover, but I kind of would have, that was not a sentence. I would have loved for them to put like the actual ghost ship, because it was hard for me to kind of picture in my head. I just kept thinking of the Black Pearl from Pirates of the Caribbean. So this is a continuation from the last Port Chatham book with Jordan, the psychologist from LA that inexplicably sees ghosts, and still we don't know why she sees ghosts. Just that a surprise third tier character also sees ghosts, so that was fun. I had fun. I'll say 3.5. I wasn't as interested in this murders as I was in the first book. Because the first book, again, still really love Jordan. I think she's great. I love how neurotic she is. She just feels real. Like, she honestly feels like one of my aunts. You know what I mean? She just feels the writer did a great job. I was gonna say actor, wow. The writer did a great job of making her very realistic, at least to me, you know? She still has her 4-point plan that does not include the hot neighbor, Chase, who is an ex defense attorney, now jazz and bar owner. Even no matter how cute his butt is, like, she's still like, no. She still sees ghosts. The last book, she solved Hattie, one of the ghosts in her house's murder. This one I was kind of hoping they would talk about Charlotte, Hattie's younger sister, who's also a ghost in the house's murder. You don't get that. You get what happened to Charlotte after Hattie died, which is really sad. And this book was published 2011, and I looked up the author. It doesn't seem that they have a third Port Chatham book, which is kind of disappointing. I really want to know what happened to Charlotte. So this centers, the historical murder centers around Michael from the first book, who was like the main Shanghaier in the town, like the mob guy. And Shanghaier, they used to Shanghai people, which is basically kidnap them, force them into labor, basically human trafficking people. So he's not a good person. I didn't like him in the first book. I don't like him in this book. His ghost comes to the house, and Hattie's like making okay. I missed some things. Okay, so when Hattie was alive, she was falling for Frank, who was a unionizer for the sailors, and Frank was falling for her. Frank was framed for her murder and hanged. In the first book, you see his ghost is still hanging around. In the last book, they had a beautiful, adorable reunion. So basically, Hattie and Frank are cohabitating in Jordan's house, and as Jordan puts it, cooing at each other, which I thought was very sweet. Hattie didn't have a happy ending in life, but maybe she can have a happy ending in the afterlife. Michael shows up, who in the first book, you find out what, you know, the bad guy, and he was obsessed with Hattie. He did kill Hattie's real killer, but he also knew Frank didn't do it and let him hang for it because he was a unionizer and he was going to ruin his profits. So not a good person. Even though I feel like in this book, they try to make him a good person for you to like. I was like, no, I'm not going to fall for that. He shows up and asks Hattie to marry him. And the thing about Hattie is she's considering it because she feels guilty because she thought he murdered her. And I was like, Hattie, get your shit together. You do not love this man. You love Frank. And this guy has been like obsessed with you for like over 100 years. Red flag, no. So Hattie, out of guilt, asked Jordan to look into it. And I will say the historical murder, after like 3 diary entries, I totally figured out who the killer was. But I will say for the modern day murder, because the town's Lothario, Casanova, womanizer, is found dead. And for his murder, I was completely wrong who was the killer, which was a lot of fun for me. I really enjoyed that. Now, this one I wasn't as invested as the last one because I really liked Jordan and Hattie in the first book. So I wasn't as vested in this one. And in this one, Charlotte like insists that she find who killed Frank. Michael, it meant so much to her because Michael was good to her. And then I read the book and I was like, no, Charlotte, he wasn't. When your sister died, you were 15 and you were forced into SA work. Now, I'm all for SA work if it's consensual adults. Obviously, she was 15 and her whole family's dead. So Charlotte's not in any of those categories, right? He basically ignored Charlotte's existence until literally someone dragged her half beaten to death and he couldn't ignore her anymore. Okay? So he was not good to you, honey. He could have done so many things. He could have, because at one point Charlotte offers herself up to him as like his mistress and he's like, no, it'll be like sleeping with a ghost. Fine, fair enough, because he's still obsessed with Hattie even though she's been dead for like 2 years at this point. So I think Charlotte's like 17. Fine, fair point. But you could have married her and given her the protection of your name. You could have hired her as like a maid, chef, whatever. You could have set her up in a different town as a widow and have her live her life that way. But no, you ignored her. You ignored her in her poverty. You ignored her when she started working in the, what was it, Little Green House, I think it was called. That's the whorehouse. He ignored her existence until he couldn't ignore it anymore and then magically thought of a job that she could do to keep her safe. So no, you don't get any points from me for doing the bare minimum. You could have done so much for Charlotte because she was a child, yet you didn't. So you could go fuck yourself and your ghost. I don't care. Jordan's powers are expanding. She still doesn't know how to use them. We don't get how she got them. There's an added mystery of $40,000 from the first book that Hattie finds. And Hattie's like, oh, it's still in the safe. It's not in the safe, so someone took that. And we don't know Charlotte's murder. Although I have my suspicions. And I don't think we're ever going to get it because, again, it's been like 12 years since this book came out.
Hi, guys. I'm just froze at the best of times. Look at that. Anyway, I just wanted to hop in because with my rant about the Ghost Michael, the stupid Shanghaier, I forgot to mention that at the end of the book, Jordan and Chase get together and it's a really, really sweet moment. Okay, I just wanted to pop in, let you guys know that, and now back to the rant.
This book, I thought Clive did it, and I don't know why this author really likes the name Clive, because the first book there was a Clive, and this book there's a Clive. Anyway, I enjoyed myself. 3.5, you know? I'm gonna check out the other series this writer has done. I will say I'm going to try to space out my cozy mysteries, because that also might have been a thing, because I read the first one when I was sort of in a slump when it came to romance novels, and the first one was sort of like a nice like palate cleanser. So I think next time I'm gonna space them out a little bit more. I was going to go to my local bookstore to pick up some other cozy mysteries, some other romance novels. I wanted to check out, someone commented about getting a Julie Garwood book and checking those out. I've heard her name before. I heard her titles before. So like, thank you, because it reminded me that I really gotta write stuff down. I forget everything. That I want to check her out. So yes, I am 4 books down on my TBR shelf. So you know what that means? I'm gonna get more. But if I do get more cozy mysteries, I'm gonna space them out a little bit more because I think that was also a thing. They're great palate cleansers, you know what I mean? Okay, so I rambled a lot, per usual. But I had fun this week. It was especially great because like my legs all messed up, so it was nice to like sit on the couch and read these books with my dog way too close to me. He just has no concept of personal space. So that was nice. So I don't want too much time for me to get back to the real world. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you later. Bye.